In the previous section, we have deployed the smart contract and we have also seen how those smart contracts can be invoked using command line. In this section, we are going to develop an application with Hyperledger Fabric through SDK. Now let us look into the network section. This is how the network looks like when we try to have a common connection profile which we have generated before for organization 1, organization 2 and organization 3. I'm going to again show you how we can create this common connection profile in the practical section, which is in a couple of minutes. So we will use these connection files to connect to our PLN network for each peer organization. Now let us see. If you consider this as web or the browser with which we are using, we are trying to get in touch with the blockchain. So for that, we need a wallet to identify a client or an application, which is we are gonna create a client Bob, and then Bob will gonna interact with the blockchain by connecting to a peer using a gateway. So we are going to see all this, how the coding is done in few minutes. Let us just focus on this diagram and understand how the application is connecting to the blockchain in its entirety. As we have seen, through web browser with the use of wallet to identify a client Bob, he is going to connect to a gateway which in turn connects to the peer in the blockchain. And it is the same for the other users in the network as well. If we consider Bob as a manufacturer and Alice as the wholesaler, and we are going to consider Eve as the pharmacy person. Now we have created all these three clients and we have created wallet identification for all these three clients. So using those wallet identification, each of these user connects to the peer in the network, and that connection, using that connection, you can invoke the transaction just like we have done using the command line interface, which we have seen in the previous section. Now, this is how the application will interact with the blockchain network. Now, let us understand how this is achieved and let us see how this application looks like when we build this application and try to connect to the blockchain network, which we have already built, and we already have the smart contracts or the chain code deployed on it. Let us go to the VS Code. As you can see, inside organization section, which is this, inside organization section, you have three major folders. One is manufacturer. I'm going to close all this. So one is manufacturer, pharmacy, and wholesaler. Inside both of this, you have one special folder, which is application. So application is where the application code resides. So let us go to PLN client here, and there is one more important file, which is app.js. Now let us understand, if you understand one file, it's the replication of the same for other two users as well. For example, other two users meaning the pharmaceutical guy and also the wholesaler guy. Now let us understand this. So this is the main file where you are going to import all the details. So we are using Express framework to build the front end application. So we are using Express to build this application of ours, which is going to interact to our blockchain network. The main thing that you have to take account here is we have this fabric network with which is used to import the wallets which we are going to generate. So this is the code where we are taking the wallet information from our local system, and we use that wallet information in order to talk to the endpoints that we have created. So these are the endpoints. As you can see, you have add user endpoint, we have make equipment endpoint, you have query history by key endpoint, and you also have query by key endpoint. Let me explain these. And okay, so add user. As you can see here, when the request comes to this, when the request hits this endpoint, it is going to take the username and it is going to do a check on the username. Then it will add that username to the wallet. So when you do this, uh, a user identity will get created in your user structure. We will see the change of structure in few seconds. It's the same with the make equipment as well. So you will get the requested parameters from the UI, and we will get all those details using these instructions which you can see here. And all those parameters we need to pass as a parameter to the transaction that we are supposed to invoke on the blockchain. As you can see, all these parameters we need to pass to make the equipment. So we are going to pass this equipment to this make equipment function. If you get the result, that means if you get 200 result, that means it is successfully stored on the blockchain. Now get query by key. In this, you will be needing the username, and here after that you are going to pass a key. So with that key, which is nothing but the manufactured equipment ID, with that key, you are going to invoke the history of that key. After that, you can also get the information of that particular equipment using this query by key endpoint as well. And for all of this, the different functions get executed. So this is how it looks like, and it is the same for wholesale and also pharmacy as well. Coming to one more important file, which is this file. So here in this JS file, you have to mention a unique URL base where your application exposes itself. So these are basics jQuery functions. If you are familiar with JavaScript and jQuery, this should be pretty easy to understand. So I'll just explain one. So as you can see here, when the user clicks on add user button, the URL will get selected and it is gonna hit this endpoint add user over here, and it is gonna pick up the value that the user is giving as the username. Then we are gonna make an Ajax call. Ajax call is nothing but you are gonna hit a particular backend endpoint, in our case endpoint which is add user, and we are gonna hit that endpoint with the parameters to get the response back. And it is the same for other buttons as well. So this is the main functionality that you have to keep in mind, and it is a repetitive process. If you understand how to do it for one of the folder, for example, if you learn how to do it for manufacturer, it's the same for pharmacy and wholesaler as well, keeping in mind that you have to change the base URL. That is all you need to keep in mind. Now let's get into the practical stuff and see how this works. Now let me close this. So as I told before, this is the command that you need to run to generate this file, which I'm going to show it here, which is this connection profile file, right? Connection.org1.json, connection.org2.json, and connection.org3.json. So this is the command that you should execute. Since I've already executed, I already have that in place in my ecosystem, VS Code. Now let me enlarge this and make sure your Docker containers are up and running. and you have created the channel and you have deployed the smart contracts and everything. Now let me go to organization, manufacturer, application. Now we will execute this. Now as you can see, our first application, that is manufacturer application, is available at this URL. Now let me close all this and open only manufacturer. Now as you can notice, you have public service and views, and you also have node modules because you have to install npm install inside this. Since I have already installed that, I have node modules. If you don't have this node modules, please go ahead and execute npm install inside this application folder. Now let us go to the browser and hit on this URL. As you can see, you will get this UI. Now let us add Bob. Sorry. Let me add Bob. So if you get this message, Bob was successfully added to wallet and it is ready to interact with the Fabric network. Okay, well and good. Now if you go to your VS Code and look at the structure, as you can see, there is one more folder which got automatically created, which is the identity folder. Inside this you have a wallet folder which has identity for Bob, which we have just created. Now in the console you can see the output as well. Now let us go and make equipment. So I am giving values as this. You can give anything you want. So let me submit this transaction. This transaction will store this particular equipment in the blockchain. As you can see, successfully record manufacture equipment in the blockchain. This means this asset is stored in the blockchain. Now let me query this asset in the blockchain. As you can see, the query result, now the current owner type is manufacturer and the previous owner type is also manufacturer. Now let me see the query history. So the query history makes sense at the end of the life cycle, but at this point of time, the history of this asset is only one record. Now let us go and open up one more terminal and let us do the same thing for wholesaler, because that is the next logical step or logical explanation in our life cycle of this manufacturing life cycle. Now let me go to pharma ledger and organization, and let me go to the wholesaler and application. Now let me execute node app.js. So as you have seen, it is running on localhost 300001, sorry, 0001. Now let me call this user as what was the previous one we have called. So for the manufacturer we have added as Bob, and for this we are gonna add as Alice. As you can see, Alice was successfully added. Now if you see the wholesaler, the identity has been added, which is Alice. Now let's go and invoke the transaction for distribute, wholesale distribute. Now let me submit this and wait for the transaction to finish. As you can see, the blockchain has successfully captured this record. Now let me query this here. As you can see, previous owner is manufacturer, but the current owner is wholesaler. Now, if you go for history of this record, you must find two records over here, which is the same thing. But Is it available only in this node? No, it's available in this node as well. As you can see, I'm querying the same history for that equipment in manufacturer as well. You can see the same two records. Now to complete this life cycle, let me go and execute the same instruction for pharmacy as well. Organization, pharmacy, application, node app.js. Okay, this is running in 3002, localhost 3002. As you can see, this is pharmacy. I'm gonna call this person Eve. Sorry, Eve. As you can see, Eve was successfully added. And if you go to your VS Code, you must see a Eve identity added. After that, you're gonna go and go for pharmacy received. This completes the transaction from wholesaler to pharmacy. Now let us just query for the key. Now as you can see, the previous owner is wholesaler and the current owner is pharmacy. And let me query the history. You should see 3 records here. As you can see, this is 3 records. And it is the same with other peers as well, because it has come to a consensus and it has updated its ledger data. So this is how we are going to build the distributed application and see how it works. So it's very simple. If you learn for one, and you should be good to go for others as well. So this is a very simple example of how you can modify your wallets, and you also can modify and play around with your front end as well. That is it for this lecture. Please do practice this. This is a very interesting section, which is very useful for you to pictorially or visually present how blockchain works. So if you have any doubts, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you for watching.